What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
All right. I think we're all set. A little bit of a delay. We apologize for that if you're watching live on Twitch. But what is going on, everybody? Welcome into a very special edition of Underground Sports Philadelphia. It's episode number 530, and it is the first episode in podcast history where officially our sweet baby boy, Joel Embiid, is the NBA MVP. It's KB and Matt coming at you from Underground Studios right before Game 2 of the Eastern Conference semifinals between the Sixers and Celtics. We'll take you right into that as tip-off is at 8 o'clock tonight. We're going to talk Phils, we're going to talk Eagles, and we're going to talk Survivor 44 at the end of the show for the true sickos. But before we get into everything, make sure you're following us at Underground PHI, Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/Underground Sports PHI. And if you want to tune in a day early to watch the podcast, follow the Twitch channel because Matt and I go live every Wednesday night, twitch.tv/Underground Sports PHI. And go subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a 5-star rating and review. It goes a long way for helping more people find Underground Sports Philadelphia, find all the content we're putting out, and it helps get us on the charts, which gets more ears and eyes on the show. Leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. That's where you get full video episodes of this show twice a week and every podcast on our network. You get shorts, interviews, clips, live streams. We got a whole bunch coming up in terms of live streams over the next couple of days on the channel, so go subscribe. We are currently at 450 subscribers, trying to get to 500 ASAP. So go subscribe, be a friend, tell a friend, youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. And Underground Sports Philadelphia is presented by the City of Vineland. And whether you are a company looking to expand, relocate, or you're a new business startup, selecting the right location is critical to your success. Vineland, New Jersey offers both an affordable business location and an excellent quality of life. The city's Economic Development Department is a one-stop source for moving your project through the development and approval process. Their goal is to make this process as smooth as possible and to provide the fastest turnaround times in the region. If you're considering potential locations for your operation, contact the Vineland Economic Development Team at 856-794-4100. That's 856-794-4100. Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season. And big thank you to Main Auto LLC, Security 21 Security Systems, Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated, and the Dental Wellness Center of Vineland for their continued support of this podcast. But Matt, what is going on, brother? We are thriving because Joel Embiid is indeed the NBA MVP. Got announced yesterday in front of everybody on the team, in front of everybody in the world, and nothing feels better than seeing our guy win the MVP.
Yeah, I think it was a good chance to reflect on his career so far and where he started, and the fact that this was a guy that into his teenage years was not even a basketball player. You know, we all are pretty aware of his story at this point, and that just what a miraculous and awesome run it has been to this point. And I think we all have a story like this, but I can remember going to a Process Era game, and you watch him do the shoot around, and there was these 2-3 years of like mystery, and no one's really sure if he was actually going to stay healthy fully and become what we were projecting him to be. And you know, in this era too of the last 4 or 5 years, where you've had him, Giannis, Jokic, all kind of taking turns winning MVP, and I think there are multiple ways to take that. You have these international stars. This has obviously been the NBA's dominated through most of its history by American players, but you're seeing the 3 best players in the game right now are, and really, I mean, you have Doncic as well, who's probably somewhere in that top 10. You have quite a few guys that are from the international realm, and you have Wemby coming through the draft. We'll see what he develops into. sort of holding the torch now, and all of them big guys. I think Jokic and Embiid especially have revitalized the center position, and both of them in like very unique ways. We've never seen. Jokic is like such a heliocentric center, which is like just not very common. Normally we see like his play style and the way his team plays around a guard, not really a big man. That's why he's such a unique player and he's so good at it. And then Embiid, it's just do not see efficient scoring like this from anyone. He's right now still the most efficient scorer in NBA history. He just gets to the basket very well, shoots free throws well. He's got an incredibly deep bag, and we all know too defensively what he can do and how great he is. And it just feels nice that he's gonna have like an individual like recognized award now because he's been slighted over the last few years. Even if you just take away the MVP discussion and all that, like getting left off in a first team All NBA. I know that people are upset about him being not an All-Star starter this year. I mean, he's still an All-Star, but like even stuff like that. Like this is a guy that like I don't know how, but has been largely disrespected. Even now in these playoffs where he's hobbled and injured, that has been the story for the last few playoffs. He plays through those injuries. How many guys like would be playing through torn meniscus and shattered facial bones and like destroyed fingers? Like this is a guy that has always put on a brave face and toughed it out. And I think what I love about him too is that every year he comes back and gets a little bit better and improves. He has insane work ethic. I think him and Giannis are very alike in that way, and that every year it feels like these guys are like not satisfied with where they're at and will constantly just improve. And that's just like a great attitude to have from your star man. So I'm glad he's getting his individual award. He deserves it. I'm glad that he's not going to walk away from these last few years when he's been so dominant and so good with, nothing individually to show for it, nothing team-wise to show for it. And maybe this year that changes. Maybe this is their year it breaks for them. But I'm glad he's being recognized that way.
And it was really cool, like, to see the whole team in there reacting, and then you get the social clips. And Joel said today in his press conference he wanted to kind of keep a straight face, not really get emotional about it, and then he didn't really know what happened, and the emotion just overcame him. But to, like, just see, and he said this too, he tried to tell the Philly media specifically that, like, he didn't care about the MVP so that they would stop asking him about it, which I found very funny and just very Joel. But, like, it showed in his face and his reaction, like, how much this actually meant to him and, like, to have his teammates around him. And I think the thing that stuck out to so many people was just the instant, coming over, congratulating and consoling of James Harden was very, very cool, because James Harden is one of those guys that doesn't necessarily show emotion outside of the basketball court. Like, he is very even keel, very like spotlight, like he's cool with it, but like he doesn't show those like caring and loving emotions because he's got that dog in him. But to see him come over to Joel, congratulate him as somebody who was in Joel's shoes just 5 years ago, as 2017-2018 MVP, I think that just goes to show like how much every single teammate that Joel has played with outside of maybe two guys genuinely cares about him and genuinely likes him. Like, to get Marco Bellinelli tweeting about Joel was really cool. As much as we've talked about Marco Bellinelli and Ersan Ilyasova on this podcast and just as Philadelphia 76ers fans, it was just cool to see like the embrace that and the joy that every single teammate in that room had for Joel.
Yeah, Harden gave him the Rolex with the 23 MVP on. He told him we had to get more links. I would love to know just how massive Embiid's wrists are. I can't imagine that, but yeah, it's great, and I think too it's really cool because obviously the last few years we've been very lucky in Philly sports in general to like having MVPs, multiple of them is just not common at all. So it's really fun to be a part of that. I mean, it's not inconceivable that you could have had 3 MVPs in the last year in Philly sports. Hurts was pretty close. So,
and even Andre Blake was up there for the Union.
Yeah. So it's a really special time, and like I said, I'm glad that he's getting recognized for it because he 100% deserves it. He's worked really hard to get where he is, and I think again, it's cool because him, Giannis, and Jokic over the last few years, they've all taken such different routes to get there. Like Embiid was not even like a basketball player until his teenage years. Then is obviously like a top pick in the draft. Could have been number 1 overall. Like there's a world where if he's not injured during that Kansas season, he's not even a Sixer. Then Giannis, obviously, like late in the lottery, viewed as like a project. I don't know that anyone expected him to be, the best player in the league and, multiple MVP kind of guy. And then Jokic is like the ultimate second round pick flyer that just turns into gold, and he's just fantastic.
Picked during the Taco Bell commercial.
Yeah, like he's just amazing. So it's like all three of these guys have been like the story of the NBA the last 3-4 seasons, and I think it's really cool. Just the difference that the different ways, the different paths. You don't have to be the number one. In fact, a number one overall pick has not won the MVP since 2013 with LeBron James. So a lot of times it really isn't even these like number one overall guys. I think it speaks a lot to, finding the right pieces in the draft is not always as simple as having the number one overall pick, and development is really important too. Like I'm sure there are guys that had landed in better situations or worse situations, maybe reach or don't reach the levels that they do. So it's awesome.
It's amazing. And just seeing whoever is behind the Sixers video content over the past couple of days, like just the timeline videos and just seeing like the entire journey of Joel Embiid, like we as fans have gone through it with him too. And like, as much as this is Joel's award, he even said it, like the fans had a huge part in this happening, because there were people out there who said Joel Embiid would never play a single game of NBA basketball.
I mean, there was a time where that did not seem so crazy. He had that, the vernacular foot injury that seemed like super scary. He's getting like rehab in Dubai or whatever. Like there were legitimate concerns early in his career. And I think it's amazing that, and I'm knocking on wood, obviously he's had like really bad luck with injuries in the playoffs, but largely speaking, like he has avoided those, like early in his career. It was really like, wow, like this guy could have like a catastrophic injury. He's, again, knocking on wood, has like avoided those. It's been like these small little naggy things. But yeah, I mean, it's a testament again to his work ethic too. Like he's taking care of himself and, has put in the work like physically and in the off season to not just develop as a basketball player, but as an athlete, I think, to just get better and better. And, I just, I love the guy. He's the best Sixer I've ever seen in my lifetime, and is going to go down as one of the best players to ever play in basketball. Like he's just amazing. I'm so happy I've gotten to watch him play, that we've gotten to see like his whole journey. Reminds us that the process was worth it in the end, because it gave us such a terrific player. I mean, you tank in the hopes that you sniff a Joel Embiid.
Yep.
That is what you do it for. So.
And it was really cool, too, to kind of just see the teammates who just got here this year, like a PJ Tucker and his post on Instagram congratulating Joel all the way through. Joel was sharing a whole bunch of Michael Carter-Williams congratulating him. D'Angelo Russell congratulated him. So to just see like the respect and the admiration and just the support that Joel has, not only here, but throughout the entire NBA is very, very cool.
Yeah, I think it speaks a lot too when you see guys willing to give him the respect. Players have a good sense of who's properly rated, who's maybe underrated, who's overrated, and I think in general people recognize that Embiid is a really, really talented player. So
he wins the MVP, the first Michael Jordan MVP award. So don't let that go unnoticed. But on top of that, the Philadelphia 76ers, Matt, they did the unthinkable, and they did something for the first time since 1986. They won Game 1 in the second round of the NBA playoffs. It's brought to you by our awesome merch partners at PHI Apparel Company. They just released new Joel Embiid MVP merch, and we just released our Philly Dogs merch as well. You can get our podcast merch on there. It's the most effective and direct way to support us, and PHI Apparel Company provides unique designs and high-quality clothing for the great fans of Philly, and with their original designs for all, there's no doubt you'll stand out in the crowd. Our listeners can use promo code UNDERGROUND for 10% off any apparel order when you shop online at phiapparel.co. That's phiapparel.co, code UNDERGROUND for 10% off any and all merch orders. It's Harden's Garden, baby.
I mean,
what a performance.
Rolling back the years. Watching the game, and the first few minutes go by, and you're like, I can't believe we're getting a Harden night. Like, I cannot. And just a whirlwind of the game. I felt like pulling my hair out for most of the first half, like I think a lot of people did, because Celtics just felt unstoppable, constantly pushing the pace, and the Sixers really could not. I mean, the Celtics were shooting like at 1.93% in that first half. I think they ended the half shooting somewhere around like 76, 77%, and they just got anything they wanted. Yet they were barely up at halftime. I think that's really the story of the game. Like, you can get to the final few minutes of the fourth quarter, but I think the fact that the Sixers were able to hang around, and that was because of Harden, who has gotten his flowers and deserves it, but also D'Anthony Melton, maybe the most important addition that we've made in the like Joel Embiid era, because we've just not had a D'Anthony Melton. Keeps us really afloat. He hit some big daggers, and had a great shooting night. He's had a really good playoffs. He's been, I think, a guy that we have just not had in years past. Like, we've begged for him. He's like in a Danny Green type of mold, where it's like he can give you those big moments. And
oddly enough, we got him for Danny Green.
Right. He's just been he's been fantastic. I absolutely love what D'Anthony Melton has given us so far in these playoffs. He's been just such a huge player, honestly. Like, such a huge player. Like, you want guys that can play in the playoffs and like bring their game to the level, and D'Anthony Melton's done that. But for Harden, I think, I'll be honest, I was definitely skeptic, from that Nets series, because he did not look good in the Nets series. But he showed in that Boston game 1 that he still has it. He can dial in, and I'm sure some of that rest helped, because we can't forget he's been dealing with like a nagging Achilles injury in the last like quarter of the season. So I'm sure we talked so much about Embiid getting that time off. I think Harden probably could have used that break as well. So
send him to Vegas whenever he wants.
I mean, honestly, I think that might just be how like Embiid was getting those plasma injections.
Yeah.
Maybe like Harden just needs
slap injections.
Yeah, exactly.
Quote unquote.
Which he was giving to Paul Reed on the bench, by the way. He was giving him some love taps. So it was a great Harden performance. It was a great overall team performance. Tyrese Maxey too. So Tyrese Maxey averages against the Celtics 8.2 points in his 10 games for the Celtics. He had, 26? What I loved about that too is like he did not stop shooting. He did not shrink away from the challenge. And I think that has maybe been an issue for him, is like just as much psychological. Especially this year, he had really rough games against the Celtics for the most part. So the fact that, like, in the playoffs, I don't care about your efficiency. Like,
right.
like it's, you need to be aggressive. You need to be willing to continue to like throw yourself out there. And I love that he did that. I hope that gives him some more confidence as the series goes along, because we're going to need it. I loved his energy. I loved the way that the Sixers played in that game. They're very direct. I'll be honest, like, if you would ask me at 6:50 on Monday night, how I thought the series was going to go, I would have told you like Celtics in 5 or 6. Like, I really, and it could still be that. But I do think like stealing game 1 not only gives you the obvious, like, technical edge where you now have home court advantage, and, you worst case scenario, you're going home 1-1, which even with a healthy Embiid, if you had offered me that, if Embiid was totally fine and you just said, hey, they come home 1-1, I'd take that every time, because that is just, that's a good spot to be in. The fact that they were able to do that without Embiid, buy him a few extra days rest. Apparently he's
shout out Trae Young.
Shout out to Trae Young. The Mike Muscala legend grows. He's apparently gonna play tonight. We'll see like what he looks like. That is like not to be like the downer, but like I was genuinely concerned that Embiid was like done because such mixed signals about his injury, and it felt very Kawhi-ish, where like Kawhi, like they kept saying, oh, he's gonna be back, and then it turns out he's done, and he was never gonna be back. And there was a Doc quote that sounded really ominous at the very beginning of the injury, where he said he had this like phone talk with Embiid, and like he's like, this is just another chapter in your story about how you're gonna have to overcome this, like, and it sounded like really dark. It sounded like
Doc talking about how he hates hearing the letters MRI.
Right, and and that was like when he said like if game 1 was next Saturday or whatever. This was like early on before the Hawks, I think, had even won a game in that series. He's saying, like he's not even 50% to play, like, it's going to take some time. Like, And then you get like the Ramona Shelburne tweet though, where it's like, oh, it's a grade 1 sprain. That's a 7 to 10 day injury. And then it was like, okay, well, when he comes back, he's going to have to wear a knee brace. And it's like, actually, it's worse than a grade 1. And he's not playing in game 1. And he's aiming for his game. Like, it just felt, I don't know. It felt very, very sketchy to me. And it still feels sketchy because I'm just, I don't know. I've seen Embiid. And we talked about like his grit, but I've also seen him roll out there when he's still clearly injured and not be effective. And I have no idea what kind of Embiid we're going to get tonight and going forward. And that is still a huge concern in this series. Like, you had Harden's best playoff performance ever. You had a great D'Anthony Melton night. And you're not going to get that every night. You don't need that necessarily every night, but I just don't. I still have some of the same concerns. The Celtics, though, this is a story with them that they have a tendency to really fumble away the end of games. They let the Hawks back into that series.
It's been the case since the All-Star break for them.
Right. Like, they've not been a good team, closing out games. And the Sixers, conversely, have been a team that have been good at closing out. That's one of Embiid's hallmarks of his MVP season, is that he was very good in the clutch. So we'll see how they handle that. I think shout out to B-Ball Paul as well. He had a great game, iced the free throws, just really, really strong performance from him. Stepped up in a huge way, and his legend is only growing. But I am curious to see how Embiid plays tonight, and that's going to shape the rest of the series. The rest of the series is totally dependent on Embiid and how effective he can be.
And as critical as we are on this show about Doc Rivers, tip of the cap, because that was the first time in maybe his entire tenure as the head coach of the Sixers where in a high-energy, high-octane situation like the playoffs, like the second round, against the Celtics, no less, we saw in-game adjustments defensively from this team. First quarter, it was like a layup contest. Whoever could just go down the court and score was scoring. Then Doc switches to that 2-3 zone. We obviously get the amazing defensive sequence there that ends in Malcolm Brogdon throwing a pick 6 to Tyrese Maxey. But that was
one
the
of the
first
most
time.
Bizarre plays
it was
I've
unreal.
Ever seen. I had no clue because I was actually watching. Shout out to the Ball pod. I was watching their live stream of the game, so I didn't hear the game audio. I was just hearing them talk, and I was I had no clue what was happening. I think most Sixers players, most Celtics players had no clue. Everyone just kind of stopped, and I wasn't listening to the game audio, so I didn't know if I missed a whistle or something.
A lot of people said they felt like it looked like the Celtics thought the shot clock buzzer went.
It was 0.1. 0.1.
And that was the first time I really felt like Doc saw something happening, needed to make an adjustment. The entire coaching staff made the adjustment, and it was a positive one for the first time in what felt like forever, especially defensively.
Well, I'll say this. One, when Doc Rivers is missing one of his stars, I don't know what it is.
Hold up. Let him cook.
the hat gets turned backwards. I don't know what it is.
He goes full Ash Ketchum.
Honestly, he does take it up a level. And two, if you've listened to any Celtics fan over the last year, that Joe Mazzulla is not their favorite. He's not their prodigal son. And, he's a rookie coach coaching in the playoffs in a high stakes game. This was something we talked about even before the series that, Doc is we don't love him, and we have our issues with him, but he is a better coach than Joe Mazzulla. And that is an advantage we don't always have, with Doc, and he still is prone to his mistakes, but he's a better coach. And I think Joe Mazzulla, especially there's some question marks in that game. I think especially defensive rotations were a little confusing at times. Now some of that is on the players too, in communication. I did not think Marcus Smart had a good night. I was praying that he was going to be left in the game because he had some big and ones down the stretch, but I did not think it was a vintage Smart performance. But
it's kind of dumb, if you will.
Right. So I just think in general, it's really great to have one game one because I think it gives you this Celtics team, not that they're reeling, right? But I think they have had they've had some bumps over the last few weeks and even last month and a half if you go into the regular season. And when you let the Hawks hang around when you didn't need to, you let the Sixers hang around in this game that you absolutely should have. And when you shoot the way they did in that first half, there's really no excuse to only being up 3. It's that to me is a really hard pill to swallow. I think if you're a Celtics fan and a Celtics player, like they will feel that. They'll feel that weight and that pressure now. We'll see how they respond. They could certainly respond well. Listen, they had a great offensive performance. They're not going to shoot like that every night, right? But they are capable of having those big outbursts. Jaylen Brown is probably not going to go missing in the second half. I don't know what the story was there with his involvement, because he could not miss early on. He seemed really into the action, so we'll see how they respond tonight. I expect they'll respond positively, but who knows? This is a team that has had a little struggles like this all season.
And great stats on James Harden when he was guarded by Marcus Smart on 31.6 possessions in Game 1. This comes from Sean Bernard. 18 points, 6 of 6 field goal shooting, and 4 for 4 from 3.
Yeah, he had Harden just unbelievable, and barely went to the line. The Sixers as a team barely went to the line. I mean, but it was great. Like it wasn't until it's so funny that there were so few fouls and Maxey almost fouled out.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a few calls that I think had this gone the opposite way, I probably would have been sending some redacted tweets to the NBA referee association. But it was a very strange game in a lot of ways, and I'm glad the Sixers came out with a win, because again, I think getting the Game 1 win does change things. I think a little bit. I think a little bit mentally it changes things for the Sixers, and it changes them for the Celtics. I hope that the Sixers haven't gotten carried away with that, though. Again, we'll see how they respond tonight to that, and I think I do worry a little bit about the emotional overcorrection. I'm almost kind of glad tonight is in Boston, because I'm not sure with the MVP thing, and they had this big. Let's be real, it really felt like an emotional win in Game 1 too, because they knew Embiid was out, and because they knew they're big underdogs, not just in that game but in the series now. And I worry about that emotional overcorrection. That does give me a concern a little bit if you've kind of had the last few days and it's felt maybe a little too much like a celebration, when you still have so much left to go. But I listen, if you're asking me would I rather be the team that stole Game 1 or the team that lost it, I'll take the 1-0 lead all the time.
And I do like that, Joel was we have 5 minutes to celebrate, and then we're on to Game 2. So the focus seems to be there, and I think winning Game 1 out of the first 2 games in Boston was way more important, simply because you win Game 1, then you go into the MVP award getting awarded to Joel and everything. I think that carries some positive momentum into Game 2, where you're not, we lost, but Joel got the MVP, so cool. Now we got to go out and battle to get things back in our way. I think it's just a positive uptick for them in that sense, where Game 1 I think was the necessary game. If, like you said, end all be all, if they end up splitting in Boston, great. But I think getting Game 1 was the more important game.
Absolutely, because I think that shifts the tone of the series just a little bit, and I think too, they're playing with a little bit of house money tonight. I think, and that can be a little freeing, and again, we'll see how they manage that. But the fact that you already have, taken away home court advantage is big. But I do expect Boston to respond well to that, because they're still a good team. I think these are probably the 2 best teams overall remaining in the East. God bless it's going to be so funny if the Sixers do make it out of this and then just lose to the Heat in the conference finals, or God forbid, make it to the finals and it's a Jokic Embiid finals. You just imagine. But I do think, the Celtics are still a very good team. Everything I thought about them 3 days ago is still true. I still think they're always been a tough matchup for the Sixers. It was a great win in Game 1, but you have to win 3 more. You got to do it. And again, I'm still very curious to see how Embiid moves and plays tonight, because they're definitely going to attack him. They're definitely going to push the ball in transition. You saw that even when it was Paul Reed playing. They were constantly going at it, and it's very easy to lose your assignment in transition moments like that. And it's very easy to, this is a guy that hasn't played, now for a week and a half. Forget even just the injury. This is a guy that has not had sort of that
almost
game,
2 weeks,
right? That game, pace and all the fatigue that comes with that. So, I definitely expect the Celtics to try and take advantage of that, because that's what we would do in that situation.
Yeah. Would you be okay with this Game 2 being Joel doesn't necessarily have his best scoring night, but he helps improve the ever so leaky interior defense that was game one, and obviously the Sixers win? Or do you want to kind of see a mixture of both to know that like he's still got both ends of the spectrum of his game kind of under control with this injury?
I don't expect him to be at full anything. I would be so shocked if he looks like his normal self. Like I've just seen this film so many times where he comes back, and I would just be really surprised if he's as effective as we're used to him being. Give me the win, if that is on the table, give me the win, absolutely. But I do think we're gonna need Embiid as the series goes along to grow into that. Whatever his health is, we're gonna need him to be the best player on the floor, like 2 or 3 more times in the series, right? Like we're gonna need that. And the good thing is you got a pretty decent layoff. Like you've got a few days in between these games, which can help a little bit. But it is a fast series, and this is like when he was talking about his injury, like they were saying that it was swelling up immediately in game, that he was dealing with a lot of pain. And this is a guy that has played through pain. He's played through injury before. Like I trust when he's saying like he's in pain and he's having trouble, like he is in pain and he's having trouble. Like he's not one of these guys that is constantly on the ground and writhing in pain. Like sure, he falls a lot during the game, but he's never been a guy that is shied away from like toughing it out and playing through stuff. So it is a worry for me just how effective he's going to be.
Sixers are 7.5-point underdogs in game 2, and also in Joel's press conference today, he did not shy away from talking about things that have happened in the organization that led to his journey of the MVP, including the burners and his guy Sam Hinkie being kicked out.
Well, Sam Hinkie posted the Pursuit of Happiness
fucking
clip.
Incredible.
Yeah, I love that he brought up the Colangelo thing, because I'll personally never get over that, how just insane that was. And what an absolute, I think it's good to remind ourselves what a absolute roller coaster it's been. So,
and then it was great that the Game of Zones Hinkie clip resurfaced as well last night across the board, and all the quotes from Hinkie saying, "We'll know. We certainly do know, Sam. Thank you, because we owe you one." What are your expectations for game 2, though, Matt? Obviously, like, would it be fantastic if Harden goes off again? Yes, you can't go in expecting that, but if you did have to kind of set like what your expectations are for this game,
my honest gut feeling is what I said earlier, that I think this team spent a little too much emotionally over the last few days, and I think there's a little bit of come down to earth tonight. Even then, just going back to Philly 1-1 is okay. I think that's totally reasonable. I think this is probably going to be a long series. Like, you can see this series going 6 or 7. So I honestly expect the Sixers to lose tonight. Who knows, right? Of course. Like I thought the Sixers were going to have a terrible time in this series, mostly because I didn't even think Embiid was going to be back. I thought he was done for the playoffs. So anything can happen, and when you have someone like Harden, you have Embiid back tonight. We'll see, but. My honest feeling is that the Sixers lose tonight, that I think the Celtics get back a little bit, and saw Jason Tatum have a really dominant game overall. Like he was very creative, and it just has insane shot making ability, and I think tonight could be a really big Jaylen Brown night as well. So I do worry for them a little bit tonight, but like I'm mostly just concerned with looking at Embiid and seeing how he is, because we know he's not going to be fully healthy, but I want to know how effective he's going to be. And this is where the series like turns. Like this is where it starts to really shape up. So,
and then you come home, you get the MVP celebration at home on Friday. It's going to be a boisterous weekend down in South Philly, because it's a doubleheader of Philly and Boston, Matt. We've got Sixers Celtics on Friday and Sunday, and the Phillies are playing the Red Sox right across the street at Citizens Bank Park this weekend.
Yeah,
it's tough. Boston hate week.
I mean, that is every week for me.
That's very true. Also, shout out to Matt on Twitter at Panasonic XD4500. He said this has got to be equally as painful for the Celtics losing game 1 at the hands of 45.
Nice. Very nice.
Who do you think is going to be like the X factor in tonight's game. Game 1, I feel like obviously Harden had his, but like you said, D'Anthony Melton stepped up in such a big way that really kind of propelled us to that win. Who do you think kind of steps up tonight?
I think it could be Tobias. He had a
great game.
A little quiet game 1 too, like in terms of like praise, but he had that big 3 late in the game, and it was a great pass by Harden. If Tobias can have another like solid performance like that, like he's one of these guys, I think that if you tell me his stat line before the game, I'd like that really sets the like he's a good bellwether guy, I think, for the Sixers. And so I think if Tobias has another solid performance, I feel good about how the Sixers have played. Because listen, like we all know we all know at this point with Tobias, but I think generally he's had a pretty good playoffs.
Yeah, I think he's been well above expectations of everybody.
Right. And, in that game, too, without Embiid, he was like the third, fourth option. And I think had, a pretty good night. I do wish he would just take the 3. Like he does have still that habit of staring at a 3 and then dribbling into a contested mid-range hezzy
I need to take that clip where he was just dribbling around and there was like 0.6 seconds on the shot clock. We need to put the Mario Star music just behind that because
absolutely insane. I have no clue where he was going. He's just driving in circles.
And I mean, hopefully just the defensive performance continues tonight too. Like obviously the interior defense was not fantastic in that first half as everybody was going back and forth, but as the game progressed, the Sixers defense, especially on the perimeter, got much more, tightened up, and they were able to kind of pick their spots and defend a lot more one-on-one and really take it to the Celtics. So hopefully that trend continues for the Sixers too, because I think that's as big of a key for the Sixers winning this series is being able to go toe-to-toe defensively with the Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, definitely saw it as the game went on, like you said, with the in-game adjustments, moving to zone, and that definitely, I think too, like, there's a few times where they forced the Celtics to not be able to get out in transition, and the Celtics really, and that is a hard way to play through a full series where it gets very physical, right? Like, you saw it in the first, especially in the first quarter, they were running on everything, and, the Sixers definitely had struggles with that, but that is not, you cannot play that way an entire series. It's just really not sustainable, even with the Celtics as deep as they are. They have probably the best 8 guys, probably left in the playoffs right now, just in terms of like quality of depth. Maybe not, they don't have like the true star talent maybe that some other teams remaining in the playoffs do, but so they do have bodies to throw, and we know that they have like athletic wings. But I do think the Sixers made good adjustments as the game went on, and you definitely saw some big defensive stops down the stretch. And listen, like, the Sixers are strong defense as well. Everything you say about the Celtics, you can levy at the Sixers as well. Maybe they don't have the individual talent, but they can be locked in. I mean, even Harden was throwing some some turbulence at times in game 1. So,
and it was just so fitting that offensive foul that was called on Harden against Horford happened, and then Harden hits that dagger 3 right in Al Horford's face.
It was an insane call, by the way, too. Just
beautiful.
Unreal.
So hopefully the Sixers keep it rolling. Game 2 coming up in just a few minutes. It does look like here he is. Confirmed. Starting lineup, Joel Embiid. There it is. So Joel back in the lineup, and from one MVP being back in the lineup to another. It's brought to you by our friends over at Wasted Wedge, one of our newest partners, the best. They're the best new product for you becoming the talking point of your event. Whether you're out on the golf course, you're at a bachelor party, a wedding, parties in general, Wasted Wedge is going to make you the talk of your event because a new age of golf has arrived. And if you're looking to be the talk and envy of your group and create memories with your friends and family, look no further than the lineup of Wasted Wedge products and merchandise. Think a shot ski, but instead of all the hot glue and super glue you had to use back in the day and actual shot glasses, it's a golf wedge. You use plastic shot glasses, keep things a lot cleaner, a lot easier to store, and a lot less breakage as well. Wasted Wedges are a blast to drink shots out of on and off the course, and you guys can check them out at wastedwedge.com or find them at Wasted Wedge on Instagram and Facebook. That's wastedwedge.com, and make sure you follow them at Wasted Wedge on Instagram and Facebook. Wastedwedge.com. Remember the name. More shots, more fun. Bryce Harper's back, Matt. 160 days after Tommy John surgery. Bryce Harper back in the Phillies lineup as of yesterday. Got his first couple of hits in today's closeout game against the Dodgers. Unfortunately, the Phillies get swept against the Dodgers, but I'm not concerned because, one, it's the Dodgers, and two, the Phillies pitching that they had to throw out against the Dodgers was less than ideal. I think the biggest thing, though, is Bryce is back, and it just makes this lineup that much better.
I still don't understand how. I really don't get it, and I'm shocked we're here in early May, and Bryce Harper's back, hitting a baseball.
A medical marvel.
Truly. I was listening to Matt Gelb talk about his his brace that he's wearing too, like to stop him from like overextending, and doing any like damage to the ligament. I'm at a loss for words. I felt like the whole time they were blowing smoke. Like at first he's down the 60-day IL, and it's like that's fair, like you see maybe if he's got a path to being here like back in late May, early June. I had to resign to myself in the winter that he was going to be back, like All-Star break, and that seems like maybe late July is maybe where we're going to see him actually throwing, because that's not where he's at right now, right? Like he's just going to be in his old faithful DH spot like he was for like half of last year. So we'll see obviously as the season goes on if he's able to work his way back to that. I mean, I just had to, I guess, put faith in the doctors here. Same with Embiid, where it's like, if he can play, I guess, like, all right. But I'm not totally sure that he should be doing this. But there are clearly people much smarter than me that know a lot more than me that I'd say that he's fine. I've never seen this in my life.
It's unbelievable. It's exciting, and, obviously you get that added juice of the Philly-Boston weekend down at the sports complex, and Bryce makes his home debut for 2023 on Friday, and I'm going to the game with CFO Margie, so we're going to be there to witness Bryce's welcome back to the lineup, but it makes this lineup so much better. And yes, the Phillies got swept. It happens. Like they struggle in these West Coast trips against the Dodgers in the regular season all the time. So, like, it didn't surprise me that it happened. Did it suck that they battled back today to tie it up and then Max Muncy hits a fucking walk-off grand slam to win the game? Yes, that sucks. But Taijuan Walker, it feels like something is just still not right with him. I don't know if it's, just getting reacclimated from the World Baseball Classic because Team Mexico went so deep and he was pitching for them. You have Matt Strahm in the lineup, or in the rotation, I'm sorry. He's been great, but, like, let's be real with ourselves. He's a reliever in every sense of the word. Like, yes, he started early in his career, but throughout most of his career when he's been successful, he's been a reliever out of the bullpen, and that's what the Phillies signed him to be, and it's been great that he's been able to step up in so many instances so far for the Phillies as a starter, but in all reality, you want him in the bullpen. And Bailey Falter, he is the ultimate Jekyll and Hyde. He has the hot month where he looks untouchable, and then he has moments where he's just not that great.
Yeah, definitely inconsistent is a good word for him.
And then obviously Nola pitched today and did his best to try to contain. And let's not kid ourselves. Like, yes, the Dodgers lost Trey Turner to the Phillies, obviously, but they still have Mookie Betts. They still have Freddie Freeman. They still have Max Muncy, Will Smith. Like, that's still a very formidable Dodgers lineup, even without Trey Turner. So, of course, they're going to score runs against us. And this time of year out in L.A., the ball flies out of there. And the Dodgers are accustomed to playing there, and it proves with their 36 runs that they scored against us.
Not the first time, too, that the Phillies have gone on the road and had a really tough time this season. So
I think a lot of people were just disappointed after winning the series and looking really, really good and kind of on the upswing against the Astros. Then you kind of lay an egg here against the Dodgers, but you're coming home now for 5 games, 3 against the Red Sox, 2 against the Blue Jays. So you get some AL East opponents who are off to really good starts this year too. Like the Red Sox, even though they're, in the middle of that AL East division, they've been pretty formidable. They can hit the ball, so you're going to have to pitch well against them. And the Blue Jays are a team that a lot of people have high expectations for this year going into the postseason. And then after that, you go out west again, which don't understand the scheduling here, but you go out west to play the Rockies, which hopefully helps the bats a little bit. And then you play the San Francisco Giants, which this time of year you should be able to hit the ball out there in San Francisco pretty well. And then you come home to play the Cubs and the Diamondbacks before you get into the heart of your NL East gauntlet stretch against the Braves, the Mets, and the Nationals in back-to-back series.
Yeah, those are the ones that I'm really looking ahead towards, because somehow they're still sort of floating around the division. So it's good to maybe have some shots now at making up some ground there, because that's what we always look back at the end of the season. It's our annual tradition in like early September, looking back at the dumb games that we dropped, especially to our division rivals. So that is where I'm sort of casting my eye now.
Yeah, I mean, the Phillies are 2 games behind the Marlins and Mets for second place in the NL East. And the Braves are just the Braves. They've been hot. Hopefully it pauses. I don't understand. The Braves' breakdown of wins and losses between home and away is the most obscure thing. They're 7-7 at home, Matt, but they're 13-3 on the road.
Whatever. Bizarre.
That's bizarre beyond belief. But I mean, you come home, and the Phillies traditionally they're a better team at home too. And you start off this homestand with Zach Wheeler on the mound. I think that's great for you, and you're playing against a pitcher who has struggled mightily to start this year and has struggled to stay healthy on Friday, and Chris Sale. So hopefully the Phillies bats can come to life against Chris Sale and light up this subpar Red Sox pitching. I don't know if the entire gauntlet of Red Sox pitching for their rotation for this weekend has been announced, or if they still have some to-be-determined spots. But Friday it'll be Zach Wheeler versus Chris Sale. Saturday it will be Bailey Falter versus Corey Kluber. And then it'll be Tanner Houck versus Taijuan Walker. So bats are going to have to propel you, especially in Saturday and Sunday's games, because Falter and Taijuan Walker have struggled mightily.
Yeah, need both those guys to find their way over the course of the season, and maybe they will, but we'll see.
But Matt, that brings us to our favorite weekly bit, the NL East Run Differential. It's brought to you by our friends over at W Energy. They just celebrated 2 years being in the energy game a couple weeks ago, released a new flavor, and released a new shaker that I have right here in the studio, this cool-looking panda on it. W's looking to clean up the energy game. 0 calories, 0 sugar. It tastes really freaking good. There's no artificial colors, no maltodextrin fillers, and they're just going to war on big energy, trying to clean it up. You don't have jitters and crash with W. They've got delicious flavors, and they are simply the best in the game. You guys can go to w.gg and use code UNDERGROUND for 10% off any and all orders from W. Clean up your energy game. Go to war on big energy, and get yourself some W at w.gg and use code UNDERGROUND at checkout for 10% off your order. Looking at the NL East Run Differential right now, Matt, the Atlanta Braves are leading the way. 156 runs scored, 108 against for a plus 48 run differential and a 20-10 record. The New York Mets at 16-14 have 140 runs scored, 132 runs against for a plus 8 run differential. The Miami Marlins at 16-14, they have still only scored 99 runs, but they have 140 runs against for a negative 41 run differential and 2 games above 500, because that's just what happens. And then you have the Philadelphia Phillies at 15-17, 137 runs scored, 166 runs against. They were oh so close to getting to a positive run differential before this series against the Dodgers. And then the stolen franchise Washington Nationals sitting at 11-18 with 109 runs scored, 136 runs against for a negative 27 run differential. The Phillies bats just have the Phillies bats are there. It's clearly just the pitching has struggled, and the fact that you've had to throw your bullpen out there as much as you have in 3 out of your 5 turns in the rotation whenever Taijuan Walker, Matt Strahm, or Bailey Falter have pitched. You're taxing your bullpen to where they're coming in games and they just don't have enough in the tank to be as effective as you want them to be.
Yeah, the length of service has been a real challenge. The Athletics, by the way, minus 118. So that is tough.
Sitting at 6-24.
Jesus.
While the Tampa Bay Rays at a plus 106.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it.
Oh, man. And then best in the National League, oddly enough, the Atlanta Braves now. They have surpassed the Pittsburgh Pirates by 3, but the Pirates at a plus 45 run differential. And the tied for the best record in the National League are the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Like we all predicted.
Just as we all said.
We all felt that.
And on the flip side, St. Louis Cardinals 10-20. Love that. Love that.
It's just such a, what I hate about the MLB is just so predictable, It's just
But hopefully the Phillies get right going into this weekend against the Boston Red Sox, who sit at 17-14 as of this recording. And then they get the Toronto Blue Jays, who are 18-12. Red Sox pitching is beatable. Like, all of their pitchers who the Phillies will be facing this weekend have, like, at least a 4 ERA, if not higher. Corey Kluber's got, like, a 6.91. Chris Sale's got, like, an above 6 ERA. These bats should be able to come to life and really find a groove, and hopefully that's, like, the start of momentum moving forward as we get closer and closer to that 4-game Memorial Day weekend series against the Braves.
Yeah, that is it's all about getting momentum now, and like you said, that Braves series is going to be huge. That is definitely going to be the team very clearly we're going to be chasing all year again for the division. But yeah, maybe we'll just sneak as a wild card, beat them in the NLDS again.
Run it back. Shout out Spencer Strider. Did you see my
I love that
tweet
Spencer
about that?
Strider's like, I'm just going to throw 2 fucking heaters, and that's it. I got 2. That's all I need. Everyone else is like, oh, I heard that Kay Osborne's adding a 7th pitch this offseason. It's a backwards slider. It's exit and Spencer's like, I'm just gonna fucking throw the ball fast. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna throw it super fast.
I pissed off so many Braves fans.
And absolutely no one is gonna hit me.
When Strider was throwing that no-hitter, and then it got broken up by our boy Gene Segura. Jeff Passan put out a tweet saying, like, Spencer Strider's like one of the best young arms in the league, obviously. But I couldn't resist putting the Reese Bat Spike video out there. So many Braves fans were so mad.
Well, actually, he had a back injury. Like, it's not really fair.
His velocity was down, and he wasn't throwing his best stuff, so I don't know what you want from us.
If you knew anything about Fiplo, you would know that it was not an optimal series.
How'd that season end for you guys? We won the fucking National League. That's how. Banners fly forever. Ugh, absolute idiots. Also, congratulations to Max Scherzer coming back as a PD sticky substance user.
Always knew it. Always knew it.
Those eyes. It was always in the eyes. But yeah, Phillies looking to bounce back this weekend, get above 500 again, and do the damn thing. Matt, since the last time we recorded an episode, the NFL draft has come and gone. The Eagles get a bunch of dogs, and it's brought to you by our friends over at Trophy Smack. You guys can upgrade your fantasy smack talk, the typical way, or you can do it with Trophy Smack, where they've got custom trophies, belts, rings, metal wall art. They do all the engravings. We just upgraded our fantasy football league trophy with Trophy Smack that I've been in for over a decade. It looks gorgeous. Looking forward to hopefully hoisting that at the end of this fantasy football season. But you guys can do the same when you go to trophysmack.com/underground to upgrade your fantasy smack talk today. That's trophysmack.com/underground. Eagles get a bunch of dogs in the draft. They trade for one. DeAndre Swift is now a Philadelphia Eagle. He's coming home. Had his introductory press conference today. But your thoughts on how the NFL draft as a whole went, and the drafting of Howie Roseman and the wheeling and dealing that he has done to allegedly piss off some other NFL GMs that maybe you should just do your job.
I do love that Howie Roseman's like secret draft plan is like, hey, the best college football team over the last 4 years and has had a great defense, has won a bunch of national champions. Well, I'm just gonna draft the best players on that defense. That's what I'm gonna do. I think we had predicted or at least mentioned the possibility of if Jalen Carter's hanging around, that's a guy that they might move up for, and they've not been afraid to do that in years past, and that's what they did again. I think the price is pretty reasonable too to get him. Does come with a risk, obviously, though. Even outside of the car incident, there had been question marks about his motivation and dedication. And I didn't know this, that apparently Jordan Davis is a huge mentor to him. And you add in the fact that there's a bunch of Bulldogs now on the defensive end, and I have to imagine it's a pretty good situation. And we look at the veterans that the Eagles have, those are good guys. I think to sort of, if they can't make him into a professional player and get him in the routine, then it was probably never going to happen. So I think overall it was a good draft. I think they you walk away with what could be the best player in the first round in at least not non-quarterback player. And I think that's great. And you get Noah at the end of the first round. That's a pretty nice pickup. I think DeAndre Swift as a flyer, right? And now you have a really interesting backfield too. Between him and you have Rashad Penny, of course, then you still have guys like Gainwell and Boston Scott. I think that running back room is really nice, and I think in general you have a nice offense. I'm surprised that they didn't make a wide receiver pick. It feels like every team pretty much just takes a flyer on someone.
They did sign 2, I believe, in undrafted free agency
guys. So maybe they stick around. Maybe they just really like the value there. Who knows?
I think one of them played with Jalen Hurts at Oklahoma too.
Right.
So
we'll see. I think overall it was a good draft. They were aggressive when they needed to be, and they really didn't give up much for next year too. Next year they'll have the same kind of flexibility. They're not going to be picking at 10, but they have flexibility too. They going into training camp and going before the season. If there's a position they really want to address and push, they have that option. And they picked that cornerback too, who I've heard really good things
Kelly
about.
Ringo.
So and that's a position too. You got to start thinking about the next 2 or 3 years, and that you're going to have to replace your 2 guys there. So
they also signed an undrafted free agent corner who a lot of people were surprised went undrafted, and everybody's saying those 2 guys could be the heir apparents once Bradbury's contract is up and once Darius Slay's contract is up. So Howie just keeps it rolling, and it is wild watching the transformation of Howie Roseman from when he was originally GM to being pushed to the other side of the building to coming out on the other end and being this savant in terms of wheeling, dealing, and just roster construction, and going out and not being afraid to swing for the fences and make moves that are going to improve this roster, whether it's in the draft or via trade on draft night the last 2 years with A.J. Brown, now DeAndre Swift. And I think the Eagles collectively are paying their running back room a little over $6 million, which is less than 2% of the salary cap, which is just insane with the talent that they have in that running back room.
Yeah, and again, it's 4 guys that can all kind of cycle in, and I think that's probably what the Eagles want. And they don't really want to depend on just one guy to do it all for them, and I think that gives you. I just think that gives you a lot of flexibility in this upcoming season when I think this offense could be very, very good. I think there was a little twinkle in my eye when Bijan was sitting there at 8 and was but it felt like he was a Falcon. Every mock draft, everyone
especially when his mom walked down the midnight green dress.
Man,
I was ooh.
So I am looking forward to seeing his career and how he works out on the Falcons, because we know that they love to run the ball. So if you're that is what the philosophy you're gonna commit to. It actually does make sense to take someone like Bijan, but obviously it would look great in midnight green. But Jalen Carter's a good pick. I'm looking forward to it, and you don't get to pick at that end of the draft very often if you're a team like the Eagles. So I like being aggressive and going at a guy that you really think can make a difference for you. I like that.
And the other news that happened right before the draft, there's a little tampering going on with the Arizona Cardinals and one Jonathan Gannon. And if there was ever a most hated coach in Philadelphia, Jonathan Gannon's working his way up the ranks.
He is just
what a slime ball.
It's weird because I think the Cardinals had a pretty. The draft itself for them was not amazing, but I think they left themselves very flexible for next year, which I think is what they're really looking towards. And they have the Texans' first round pick next year, which could be very good pick. Next year projects to be like a good quarterback class. So, the Cardinals have kind of set themselves up nicely for next year. I don't know if Jonathan Gannon is the one I want, as a part of that structure, but we'll see.
The tampering thing, when I saw that pop across the timeline like 15 minutes before the draft happened, I was like, what is going on? And then you just continue to see more and more, and like people within the building are pissed at Jonathan Gannon. Like, I'm happy that the Eagles were able to move up, 30 some odd spots in the third round because of this. But it really feels like they did not get nearly enough back in compensation for what actually went down.
Because it's also like, come on.
It's obviously elevated because it happened leading into the Super Bowl as well. But know your time and place, buddy. Like,
I think it's worse because he like lied about it.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's just not like if I'm a Cardinals fan, I'm like, this sucks. Like, this is already like this is not a good way to start your time at a new place. It just isn't.
I felt very Bugs Bunny Mafia meme. I was like, I wish all Cardinals fans a very
I thought
bad
you were going to say I'm
existence.
back on my bullshit. But
That too. That's how it started and then continued to roll. But man,
Howie Roseman when he sees a Georgia Bulldog and
did you see his quote too? He said, "I'm pretty sure I've been removed from the Florida Gators Alumni Association now."
well, you know what? If that's what it takes,
It's okay.
That's fine.
I can't even imagine what the elevation of security is going to be when the Cardinals come to town this year. Because the Cardinals and Eagles play in Philadelphia this year. Gannon is going to be crucified by that crowd.
And you know what?
Rightfully so.
As he said in the lead to the 49ers, we're going to fucking gut these guys. It's about the only good thing I think I can recall from Jonathan Gannon. So.
Man, it does feel good to know that we have a defensive coordinator that's actually going to care about his job this year. But moving on from Jonathan Gannon just costing us a Super Bowl to the islands of Fiji. It's brought to you by our friends at Tomahawk Shades, the best small batch eyewear in the game. They've got sunglasses, blue light glasses, prescription lenses, and Survivor legend Tyson Apostle has partnered with them as well. So you know they're the real deal. Tomahawk Shades have been rocking with us for years now, and they are the best in the game. You guys can go to tomahawkshades.com, check out their sunglasses and their blue light glasses, and if you need to get prescription lenses, you can do that too. And use promo code USP at checkout for 25% off your order at tomahawkshades.com. That's tomahawkshades.com. Use promo code USP for 25% off your order. A farewell to Kane, Matt. He's voted out in last week's episode. Franny wins immunity. Our guy Danny comes oh so close to winning immunity, but Franny gets it. Kane is voted out, and we live to see another Danny week.
Franny, the immunity challenge beast. Who would have thought? It just goes to show in Survivor 2 that I think, again, they talk so much about physical threats, and like, yes, Danny's been in like the later stages of a lot of these challenges. Like, he could have won, but like, that's just not the way Survivor challenges work anymore. It's not 2004. Like, you're not deadlifting like 200 pounds and having to hold it for 7 hours. Like, these challenges now I think are a lot more balanced, and so shout out to Franny. But yeah, I think I do think it's interesting too, because Franny really identified the fact that Carolyn and Carson and Jam Jam are at a really like powerful position. I don't know like how many other people have really been aware of that, or at least that we've been shown that they're aware of that. So the fact that she's highlighting that they could be in a little bit of peril this week, perhaps, because if she picks up on it last week, but then he talks her off the ledge to go and get Kane out and kind of diminish what Ratu has. Maybe this week is where, or maybe, again, when they're in that powerful middle position, they can kind of swing things in their favor. So I'm interested to see how that plays out this week.
Yeah, and I mean, we're down to the final 8, and the next time on Survivor looked like a full-blown movie trailer. We didn't even get a next time on Survivor. It was just full send right into footage. This week's episode is titled Full Tilt Boogie. So who knows what's going to happen. We got the recurring episode last week, too, of risk your shot at immunity so you get food. And feels kind of early for that to happen in a way. I was kind of surprised that it was at that
Never
moment.
give up your spot, by the way.
Yeah.
Because I know, like, Kane was saying that, like, it did it because it was good. Listen, there's no such thing as the greater good. It is not, like, you're not actually, like, shipwrecked. Like,
Yeah.
in that situation, yeah, maybe, right? Like, but in this situation, like, Danny's right. You play the game. Like, and I will lie and say that I won't vote you out, and then I'll vote you out. Because that is, like, sorry, man, it's Survivor. It's the same way. I hate when people get all upset because people lie and they're like, was that a lie? Yeah, of course it was. It's Survivor. That's how you play the game. You lie. You lie and lie and lie and lie and lie. That's how you do it.
Yeah, the Kane vote breakdown was 5-3-1-1. So we'll see what happens this week. Another idol was found, but another idol should be going back in, I think, now that Kane was voted out with an idol in his pocket or in his shoe. So we'll see if that gets put into play. But we are getting towards crunch time with idols being able to be used. The one that was just found, last time it can be used is when there's only 5 people left in the game. So
right.
Very, very close to idols no longer being a factor. It does feel like this season in particular, though, that, like, there's been an excess of, like, importance on idols and, like, just the constant search for them.
Well, I know Jamie was really disappointed because her idol went out with Kane, which was like, if that was a real idol, that'd been shocking. But I think she should actually be very thankful that she did not get embarrassed and have to play that, and that is a game sinker right there. So I think it's gonna be a really funny viewing experience for her seeing that and be like, well, okay, maybe that's all right.
So we'll see what happens on this episode, and we are going to gear up for Sixers Celtics Game 2. Hopefully we come out with another win, but make sure you guys are following us on the socials at Underground PHI, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.com/Underground Sports PHI. Follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Castorina. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a 5-star review. It does go a long way for helping more people find the show and helps us continue to grow. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia. Get us to 500 subscribers, hopefully by the end of the month, if not sooner. We're at 450 as of this recording, so go subscribe, be a friend, tell a friend, and of course, Underground Sports Philadelphia is presented by the City of Vineland, and the City of Vineland Municipal Calendar features city-organized, city-sponsored, and city-affiliated events that are of public interest. The calendar, which is accessible at vinelandcity.org, is a good way for residents and visitors to build awareness, remain engaged with city government, and participate in local events. You can also follow the City of Vineland on social media via their Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube pages. Through these tools, you can stay connected to the community and get important announcements about programs and services offered by the city, Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season. And big thank you to Main Auto LLC, Security 21 Security Systems, Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated, and the Dental Wellness Center of Vineland for their continued support of this podcast. And this has been episode number 530, a Joel Embiid MVP edition of Underground Sports Philadelphia. For Matt, I'm KB. Till next time, go Sixers. We're getting the heck up out of here. Peace.